Good morning. It's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself, and today for me is a sad day in Canada. I actually cannot believe that the vote went through last night. I know that the NDP, wanted to save themselves, wanted to save their seats, and so they voted with the Liberals. I was just hoping that people would vote their conscience, that people would look inside and not vote party lines and just do the right thing and vote this down. But it didn't happen. I hope that if you're in agreement with the government having all this power, that it does not backfire. It doesn't backfire, and that it indeed is only 30 days and he'll hand it back. I question whether it will be handed back and what else could come of this, but I pray that I'm wrong about that, so we shall see. The Emergencies Act was called because of the blockades at the borders and because of the occupation that was said to be in Ottawa. So the vote went through, even though at the time of the vote, the blockades at the border and everybody and all the trucks have been already cleared from Ottawa. I'm not sure why this act was voted through. It's hard to imagine since everything is pretty much gone and all you have left are some walking protesters with signs which are totally allowed. And even Justin Trudeau himself said he wasn't going to try to impede on anyone's right to protest on foot with signs, on sidewalks. So now, of course, this vote does have to go through Senate now. So we can see that the House passed this vote through. And I believe, I believe that obviously that we voted on party lines. So all the Liberals pushed it through and the NDP pushed it through really. And I think because they made it a non-confidence vote, meaning it wasn't just about this issue, but if they did turn it down, there was going to be a non-confidence. That meant there was no confidence in Trudeau. So because it was bigger than just the Emergencies Act itself, and it was basically a non-confidence vote on Trudeau, if the act didn't get through, it would have pushed a re-election. And so because the stakes were so high, the Liberals aligned because they're in power. They do have... They do hold government right now, so if they don't want to lose government, they had to vote with Trudeau. If Trudeau was going to fall and non-confidence was brought about him, all of the Liberals would fall together unanimously because the people, I believe, would vote in. I mean, who knows? I'm not a politician, but I think that the people have spoken and we would see a shift in government. We would see at the very least, a Conservative take power, if not maybe even a run for PPC, but who knows? So regardless, things would change if we had to have an election right now. And I think Trudeau can't go through an election right now. This is his second term. He wants to hold on to it. He's made a public disgrace, I believe, of Canada. And I think he's in no position to win an election. So I think they know they have to hang on to the power they have. The NDP, unfortunately, because I believe Jagmeet Singh, who's taken the side of Justin Trudeau in this debate publicly, and I think there's nowhere for him to go but down. I mean, he's called everybody racist, he's called everybody names. I think he hasn't listened. His own platform is for the people, for the working class people, and I don't think he's listened to them at all. So I don't think there's any way that if an election was called, the NDP could hold onto their seats in the House, and I think they know that. So I believe they had to vote with the Liberals in order to save their jobs, save their own jobs, ride this out and continue to stay having their seats in the House, because they most definitely would lose them if an election was called. And so I believe that it's my opinion that that's why the NDPs and the Liberals voted together. Of course, it still has to go through Senate today, so we'll see what happens in Senate, but because again those people can be reappointed by another prime minister, I'm not saying that they won't vote their conscience, but again there's definitely incentives to vote along your party lines, to vote with who's in power, to keep your job, to keep your personal security. Nobody wants to have a re-election at this point, particularly the NDP or the Liberals, because they already hold power, so they know they have to hang on to it. So this weekend in Canada was very, very intense. It was intense for a lot of people. It was intense for me personally. What we witnessed, no matter how the news media wants to spin this story, what we witnessed from real individuals on the ground with their iPhones, live streaming, was completely different than what we saw in the news media. And that concerns me as somebody who's always relatively believed the news. After the last 2 to 3 weeks, and I've seen firsthand the slant, the spin, and the extraordinary way that the media has refused to tell the truth of this story, has been very concerning to somebody who's always just like believed the news. And so it makes me question everything. Like, wow, if they can totally tell this story wrong, spin it for the government in power, what else are they doing? I stand for health freedom, always, first and always. Okay, after my personal experience, after what happened to me, after the truth and the knowledge and the firsthand knowing and research I've done on the pharmaceutical companies, on the injuries, on the lawsuits, I will never let anybody tell me what to put into my body, period. And so standing up for that, regardless of how the media might spin it, does not make me a Trumper. It does not make me a racist. It does not make me all these horrible things, a domestic terrorist. No, it makes me a real live human being who thinks that I deserve and who knows that I deserve as my birthright, my own freedom of choice to decide what goes in my body and what doesn't. To have personal sovereignty over my own choices and my own body, to be able to think through the consequences of my own decisions and make a decision that is right for me. Make a decision that's right for me and my family. I stand behind that, and I will always stand behind that. What we saw in Ottawa this weekend was a terrible display of overreach, regardless of whether or not the protesters had been there too long, and regardless of whether it was time to go. And I do think it was time to go. But standing up for your right in a loving, peaceful protest that had no violence, was filled with unity, patriotism, love for fellow human beings, and wanting something really at the heart of it that is about their rights, their civil rights and liberties and freedoms. To have a government who refused to talk, who refused to listen, who instead went on news media and spun a narrative that caused great division, great hate among Canadians, name-calling, refusal to listen or talk or anything to his own citizens, who likely, most of them, even voted for him. This, I just think, is wrong. To say that he didn't use militaristic power after what we saw this weekend, the images coming out this weekend, and I saw the way the news media covered it, and I saw the way that the people with live streams covered it on the ground, I don't know if I'll ever trust the mainstream media again, which is unfortunate because, I have held them in high esteem in the past. However, when you see the dichotomy of the way the live streams that happened on the ground and the way that the news slant covered it, it makes you wonder what else might be slanted and what else I just will have a hard time trusting again. It doesn't matter if you want to believe the news, that's fine. I'm not here to tell anybody what source of information to believe, but I am here to tell everybody that all sources of information are necessary. And I truly hope that this isn't the age of going after and censoring and, the way it's already started about misinformation, censoring things, censoring everybody with a different opinion, because we will never arrive at the truth without all the opinions. We will never arrive at truth or even scientific truth without all varying degrees of scientific debate. We will never end at a philosophical or sociological, any kind of economical truth without looking at all sides. I truly hope that the governments and that big tech will not go after censorship, and because I think that if that happens, we're in bigger trouble. We're in a lot bigger trouble than we think. You may not like or believe somebody, and that's your right not to like or believe some information that you read, but we are all capable, educated, thoughtful people with intelligent minds, and we can make up our minds for ourselves, so we can take in a lot of information, filter through it, and based on our own personal experiences, beliefs, life, worldview, everything, we can make our own mind up. And we really don't need the government making our mind up for us, no matter what side of any issue that you fall on, now or in the future. Because that's how problems happen. We look back in history over the past, and we see when there's only one voice or one power and control, that's when things go awry. We definitely need all the information. Truth has a way of finding its balance, finding its equilibrium. It has a way of rising, and it has a way of, when we're debating science, we look at all angles, and ultimately something will rise to the top. But all opinions are necessary when it comes to science, when it comes to religion, when it comes to philosophy, when it comes to economics and sociological impact, and any really impact, because people are all different, and we're all allowed our own thoughts and feelings. And so I stand not only for personal health freedom and the choice to make your own decisions with your own body, but also your right to have information and to make up your own mind. That nobody can tell you what to think, nobody can tell you what to believe, and nobody can tell you what to feel. That those thoughts, feelings, beliefs, emotions are yours. And they're yours. They're yours to sift through, they're yours to work through, they're yours to learn from, to grow through, to reflect on. So I stand for health freedom, I stand for information freedom, I stand for equality. We're all equal. And all this division that has happened, and I think that this division is going to be hurting all of us. It hurts communities, it hurts families, it hurts friends, it hurts employers and employees, it hurts teachers and students, it hurts the nation. So all this division based on you're this type of person and you're this type of person, and there's an enemy and we need to go after it no matter what side you're on, I think is wrong. So I think that we're all equal. We're all human beings. And when we make our decisions, most of it aren't making it because we believe that we're liberal or that we're conservative or we're Democrat or we're Republican. We're making our decisions based on our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own personal experiences, our own personal filters, and our own worldview. We're all different. And equality doesn't just lend itself to race, color, creed, gender, age. Equality is also means that somebody who is, I can't even say the word, but somebody who is unV'd is also as equal as somebody who is V'd. We are all equal, okay? We're all beautiful human beings. We all deserve respect, love. We deserve our own rights. We deserve our own freedoms. We deserve our own thoughts. We deserve our own opinions. We deserve everybody to be kind and loving and respectful and just be relatively good human beings to each other. And we need to stop attacking one another. We need to stop tearing each other down. We need to stop name calling and categorizing and discriminating. I feel like we're going backwards here. So it's okay for people to have opinions that are not your own. It's okay for people to trust different news sources. It's okay for people to trust and interpret information in different ways, because this is how we arrive at our own truth, and this is how we arrive at a collective truth, and this is how we arrive This is how we progress. This is how we move forward. This is how we learn. I mean, all of it's important. So I was personally saddened to see the force that the government used on its own citizens. I was personally sad to see the live feeds on the ground showing the extreme brutality that some, not all, but some of the police or whoever they were there, the force and, kneeing people in the ribs, pushing, kicking, arrest, like the violence that was used on people who had no weapons, on people who were maybe there too long, yes, but not violent and not mean, and who stood in peace the entire time unarmed. So the force that was used against them was wrong. And, and now to shut down those live streams, to shut down those videos with the proof of some of the really horrible acts that we saw over the weekend, I believe we could use a stronger word than wrong. That could be a criminal act, because it's necessary that we see the truth and that we hear the truth and that we know the truth. Everyone has their own truth. I'm not telling you what your truth should be. I'm only telling you what my truth is. I'm a person, I'm a human being who've had experiences, who've led me to a choice, not to get the V for me or my family. And that's led me down a path that has opened my eyes to some things, more things that I didn't want to know and I didn't want to see. But of course, once you see something, you can't unsee it, you can't unknow it. And so here I am. I don't like to be in a state of distrust. I don't like to be in a state of disharmony, because it leads to dis-ease. First, the fear of the pandemic, then the fear of the virus, now the fear of anyone who's unveiled, now the fear of the government. I'm not a politician, thank God. I do think what's going on in the world right now is wrong. I do have an opinion, and it's okay for me to express it, and it's okay for me to share it, because that's what happens in free countries. I believe this has been handled terribly. I believe that there's a lot of wrong. I believe that there's a lot of truth being suppressed. And I believe a lot of things, will come out over time. These things will come out, if allowed, over time. So I would urge everybody to keep their minds open. I would urge everybody to stop living in fear. I would urge everybody to start being kinder, to start being more loving, to start being more open, and to start putting out in the world what you want to see in the world. So if you think that the world needs more love, let's give more love. If you think that the world needs more truth, let's share more truth. If you think that the world needs more light, let's give more light. If you think it needs more kindness, let's show more kindness. If you think it needs more unity, let's become more united. So the antidote is always to give more of what is lacking. My antidote to you is more kindness, more love, more health, more happiness, more truth, more light as we move forward in these divided, sad, heartbreaking, scary, fear-filled, tension-filled, divided times, because that's not what we want to carry forward. So the antidote is that brings more of what we want to see and less of those things that are all happening right now, right? The darkness, it feels like a very dark time right now in Canada. So what's the antidote? To bring more light. So this is what we do. This is how we move forward. It's, I think, our only path at this point out, because we know the government's not going to save us. We know the big pharmaceutical companies and the big technology companies aren't here to save us. The only people who can save us are ourselves. So stand for what you believe in. Be a good person. Spread love. Spread your truth. Spread your message. And don't spread anything that you don't want to see in this world. So we have to spread what we want to see going forward. It may be the only way out at this point. And someone has to be first. So let's lead with love. I think what this movement has done was, because it was peaceful, because it brought unity to Canadians, and because it brought a voice to people who felt alone, unheard, disconnected, it brought light to a situation that, hey, I'm not alone. There's a lot of us that believe the same thing. There's a lot of us who are uncomfortable with this. There's a lot of us who want to stand up for our freedoms and our rights and our children's freedoms and our children's freedom rights. And not only have we seen so many people come together in Canada, like 100,000 people, and yes, that's not all of Canada, but that's a big portion. And when we see this rising all over the world, the protests all over the world, in all other free countries, and many, many people, we can see that the tides are turning. You know, even from a month ago, 2 months ago, there was no voice. And now there's a lot of voice. And I think what often happens is when people, you know, when light starts to come forward, when truth starts to come forward, it rises quickly and tides change quickly. And I think that this movement isn't going anywhere. You know, maybe the blockades are going somewhere, maybe the occupation is going somewhere, maybe whatever they want to label with it is going somewhere. And, you know, maybe they can even scare and threaten people to not have an opinion in order to take their bank accounts down or discredit them or whatever. But I think that wrong is wrong. And when people are uniting for freedom, for their civil liberties, for their children's futures, to be able to have their own thoughts and feelings and have access to information, when people unite in this way, you know, it takes a real oppression to try to bring that down. And so we're seeing that now. We're seeing the governments push harder. We're seeing more control. We're seeing big tech and big companies censor down, crack down even more. We're seeing, you know, a lot of hands being played. So the people who did not see it before and could not see anything other than what Global, CTV, CNN, what these channels are telling them, and they're not really, I mean, no offense to them, they're usually baby boomers, and I love baby boomers. My dad's a baby boomer, but they're watching the news from day to night. They're reading the newspapers, and that is truth. That is truth to them because they're not adept at using social media. They're not adept at seeing all the clips and piecing the information together and actually seeing what's going on, you know, on the ground, what is actually happening, live streaming and seeing the difference between them, and then having that light bulb go off and go, wow, this is not adding up, and being able to see that truth is not being told. So these are the people, I mean, the baby boomers have a huge population. So they're amazing people. They want what's good for the country. They want what's good for their children and their grandchildren. But they're being sold a narrative, and they want to believe that these things are true because they grew up believing that we should respect and listen to authority, that doctors are always right, that if you have a white coat on, you know more, and we should listen to you, and that the government has our best interests at heart, and that news media is always telling the truth, because these are the foundations that they grew up believing. You know, these are the people that go out and vote every single time. They never miss an election because it's their duty to vote. But it becomes clear that their vote is a vote from CNN, from Global News, from all the mainstream media, because they're not getting all the independent sources. And that's okay. I mean, that's how these things work. But I think now with more and more young people and people being able to see clearly what's happening and piece the things together, I think that unfortunately the government, the big tech, are going to have to overplay their hand. They're going to have to overreach further. And eventually, I think that even the baby boomers are not going to stand for it. They're not going to stand for this overreach and this suppression of free speech and everything else going on. I think eventually the powers that be are going to push a little too hard, and they're even going to push their core demographic into seeing. And so I think that this movement is only heading forward. I think that more and more people are only going to continue to wake up, to see, and to stand up for their own personal rights, freedoms, liberties, and for that of the generation behind them. I think it still might take a while, and I think it might get worse before it gets better. I think the control might get worse. I think the government overreach might get worse. I think big tech censorship might get worse. I think a lot of it might get worse before it gets better. But I believe in goodness. I believe that goodness will prevail. I believe that truth will prevail. And I believe that every person is on their own journey, and every person's waking up at their own pace, and that's okay. And so we need to be kind with everyone out there. We need to show love and support. But what we don't want to do is back down. Okay, yes, we don't want to have anything that can be considered an illegal protest anymore. But there's other creative ways now that we can still get the message out there, get the truth out there, continue to hold up freedom, to stand for freedom, to believe in freedom and truth and information. And I believe that people have more power than they think, in a good way, right? You have power over your own mind, your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own feelings, your own body. And at a lot of times in our life, we don't think we do. Our power belongs to our authority. Our power belongs to our parents. Our power belongs to our teachers. Our power belongs to our doctors. But when we take our personal power back, we realize we've always had it. It's like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. She had the power all along, right? She gave it away all the way along that movie. I mean, it's such a great symbolic movie. And finally, she looked within. She realized she was wearing the slippers all along. She had the power to go home all along. And we all have the power to go home all along, all the way through this. And the curtain, you know, the man behind the curtain, the man behind the media, behind big tech. I mean, we all have the ability to see this at whatever point in that journey, in that story of The Wizard of Oz, right? We all have courage and we all have heart. And so we can pull back that curtain at any time we want and see it and realize that we had the power all along, that our personal power belongs to us, that we're infinite, that our souls are beyond control, and that we're here on earth to bring value and purpose and meaning and much bigger things than this. And we're here to spread love and joy and take care of the earth that we live in and take care of each other and feel and experience. And right, there's only love, right, at that high vibration. And I believe that we all have the power to pull back the curtain and realize our personal power is all we've ever needed all the way along. So I think it's okay to continue to stand for what you believe in, to stand solidly in your personal power, your own beliefs, your own feelings, your own values. Spread your message far and wide. Be proud of yourself. You don't need to hold your head down. You don't need to believe the rhetoric out there that you're bad people, that you somehow can't wait for Trump to get back in power, even though, I mean, that would be the furthest thing that I would want. That you are a racist, misogynist, like terrible person, that you're trying to overthrow the government, all these things that are just false. Like I said, we all have the ability to pull back the curtain at any time and see that none of that matters. What matters is what's in here, what we hold dear, and that we just hold up the values that we believe in, and that that's okay and that's enough. So I'm wishing you a lot of love and peace and truth and light and personal power. And I will see you in the next video.